It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Full Fat Podcast. Hello again, you're joining us, and my name is Matt Whittle. And
is that Twilight Zone intro?
no, it was. I came up with it on the fly.
Oh, I thought it was. What was it actually? Because you were clearly reading something from your phone.
No, I wasn't reading anything from my phone. Well, they don't know that, do they, Chris? So, you don't have to...
No, but, I just thought it was very clear. Was it a Twilight Zone intro?
It was a Twilight Zone intro.
What episode was it from?
I don't know, I just googled Twilight Zone intro and then
for God's sake.
the first one I saw.
See, I really like the Twilight Zones. That's really fucking irritating. So I was going to be like, if that's from that episode, maybe we could kick off the discussion with that. But no.
We can't, no. I will not have the attention span to look through what I was reading and also maintain this level of banter on the podcast, so I'll have to check later when we finish recording.
Wait, it requires that much effort for you to maintain this level of banter? Jesus, I mean...
I can barely keep concentration on this podcast. I'm so bored.
Oh, fair enough.
By the sound of your voice.
Oh, thanks very much, man. Well, I guess we'll just stop
I
recording.
hate you! Don't try it.
Yeah, I'm totally the Obi-Wan in this situation.
Yeah, you were older than me, weren't you, when we met? And,
yeah, exactly.
Whereas now we're the same age.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Time is compressed.
Yeah, we were older when we first met. To be fair, that is like a Stephen Moffat-esque plot, isn't it?
Or would it be a Chris Chibnall plot? If we were...
I said, you've kicked it in straight away.
Well, not yet. We're going to talk about some other stuff, some other things we've seen. But if you're listening to the Full Fat Podcast for the first time, this is the Full Fat Podcast, and it's where me and Chris shoot the shit, as it were. We talk about some things we've seen in the last week, maybe some things we've listened to, and then whilst Doctor Who is on air, we will be discussing it as part of Look Who's Talking, which was something we used to do in video format, and then we decided that Chris was just too ugly for the camera.
I mean, you joke, but I mean, like, half the commenters were just like, Matt's so hot, and then I'd comment, like, what about me on the Full Fat account, and it'd just be silence. So I mean, it's not inaccurate, is it?
That's not true. We've had comments before that people would do both of us, haven't we? Occasionally,
yeah. They've swiftly been blocked from the
account. But yeah, Chris, what have you seen or watched or listened to or felt this week?
I mean, the big thing for me has been my love-hate relationship with Love Island this week.
I've not been catching up. I've not been following it.
I know you haven't, but I know you saw me when you came home the other night, and I was sat at home looking pretty miserable at the TV, and I said, I think this might be the first year that I stopped watching Love Island. But then, thankfully, Friday and Saturday's episode kicked it back into gear. So, the show this year has really struggled with its cast in terms of, I don't know, in most years, it feels like everyone kind of slides into archetypes. I mean, you did a video on this, so you probably know this better than me. But it's felt like there was a very clear storytelling in the show, and that's what kind of made it kind of a peerless piece of reality TV filmmaking. But this past series this current series has felt like every character is basically the same. Everyone's already kind of settled in relationships, and there's been no real tension. But that all kind of imploded in the past 2 days. Primarily because they've got new Islander Rebecca, who just seems to have been told by the producers to create as much havoc as possible.
Fantastic.
So she's basically been stealing people's... she's not actually been stealing, really. She's just been expressing interest in people who other people are interested in. And then, the person that she's interested in is actually interested in her. But then the Islander who's like, but I thought in my head, even though we'd barely spoken, that we'd be together forever and have kids, got annoyed.
Am I right in saying that... people were getting annoyed at her for playing the game Love Island on Love Island?
No, that's pretty much it. That's literally it, is that people seem to have been getting annoyed at her for actually treating it like a game show.
They do that every year, though, don't they? There's someone going like, you're just treating it like a game, Well, yes, it is a game. We're here to win money.
The difference is this year, though, this is the issue, is that kind of how do I put this? In most years, it's someone comes in and then actually steals someone who's in a relationship with someone. This is more like, we went on, Shanice, the Islander, comes back from a date with someone who, by the way, she only went on a date with, not because he chose, but because the public voted for her to go on. And then goes, oh my God, it was like I'd met my soulmate. And she was talking about I just feel like he gets me more than anyone else in the island. And then, they're like, Luke, who do you want to go on a date with? And he goes, Rebecca. And then they get on really well and they couple up. But Shanice is suddenly like, Rebecca, I feel like you snaked me because I had a plan with Luke T. And it was all going so well. Oh yeah, they've done a weird thing where they've brought in Connor. So they brought in 2 Connors. So there's Connor with a G.
Which one's the one that's the Justin Bieber lookalike?
Oh, I don't know, man.
Is that another Connor?
There's Luke T and there's Luke M. And one of them's a Justin Bieber lookalike. Like
he's only a Justin Bieber lookalike from the side though.
I actually think he also looks a bit like Zac Efron. He's like they've both been like melded together into a less
He'd get on
attractive
well with you,
form.
wouldn't he? Hello, Mr. Mr. Luke. I think you look like a cross between Zac Efron and Justin Bieber.
The thing is though is that like I just think there's no one who's like memeable. Like last year we had Mora, we had Ovi. The year before we had Georgia. I mean even last year. Like even minor islanders like well not minor but you know you had people like Tommy Fury, Curtis for that coffee remark. There's been nothing like that, and it's been nearly 3 weeks in the villa, and it's just. But hopefully we can get something back. I don't know whether you saw that meme of Shanice's face over the balcony.
Oh, I did. That was quite funny. She's the one that referred to herself as Princess Jasmine, isn't she?
Yeah.
I think that's a bit of a red flag. That says to me that she's going to be high maintenance and extremely difficult on the show.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I thought it was Rebecca said to her something to the effect of like, "Look, love, you've had 2 weeks in here and you've not clicked with anyone." She was like, "What's that got to do with everything?" It's like, well, it's quite a lot to. What she actually said.
That's the point of the show.
Said, she meant to say that's irrelevant, but she said something like that's irrelevant or something because she couldn't get her words out. So she's been memed for that as well.
Amazing.
So what have you been watching, Matt?
Oh, Bad Boys for Life. Did I blow the mic out there?
Oh, you definitely
I'm not going to
did.
shout again, I promise.
Okay, no worries.
Chris, it is fantastic. Bad Boys for Life 2020, 2K20. We've started off the year with 2020 vision because Will Smith and Mr. Martin Lawrence, ladies and gentlemen, they see all. No, but seriously, I've watched the first Bad Boys and the second Bad Boys in the past week in the lead up to watching Bad Boys for Life. I'd never seen them before, and the first two are kind of fun, kind of trashy. I prefer the first one. The first one's like a proper movie. The second one is literally like an uninterrupted 2.5-hour Michael Bay music video, and it starts off ripping off like John Woo movies, and then at the end it turns into Commando, you know, the Schwarzenegger, and they like travel to Cuba and they start like firing rocket launchers and fighting like an army and whatever. It's pretty mental.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the Bad Boys for Life is stylized with a 4, right?
No.
And yet it's the third in the franchise.
No. It's just
is it not stylized with a 4?
No, it's just for life.
Oh, so I've been thinking that it was like Bad Boys for Life. Do you know what I mean? Because I was like, they've really missed an opportunity there to like put the number 4 in the title.
Well, I think there was a feeling that this would be because basically, from what I understand, fans of the first two have wanted this third one for years. So this was meant to like cap off a trilogy. That's why it's called like For Life, and it ties into their mantra. You know, we ride together, we die together. Bad Boys for Life.
I mean, it sounds like it's literally just Furious 7 from what you're telling me right now.
For me, it gave me the feeling that Furious 7 gave me of this is ridiculous, but I'm also loving it. It's fun. There's a bit of comedy in there. This is more of a straight up action comedy though than Furious 7. Furious 7 is more like funny because it's ridiculous, whereas this was actually meant to be funny. But honestly, I was really shocked at the quality of it. They've really stepped it up in terms of not just the action, because I was thinking, you know, Will Smith and that, they're not trained, they're not going to be giving us John Wick shit. They give us a bit of John Wick shit. Will Smith's doing like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There's like excellent, immaculate framing where you can see everything that's going on. There's some great car chases. There's a great bit where Will Smith is on a bike and Mike Lawrence is in a sidecar with a machine gun. And the story's actually pretty decent as well. And for once, basically my main problem with the first two, which I've just like kind of they're still fresh in my mind, is Will Smith's character Mike Lowry. He's not a character. He's like the ultimate alpha male. Every girl's like tripping over him, and you know he's got a trust fund from his dad that he left him, and he has like a fancy apartment, and he just fights crime because he loves the danger. Like he's that sort of character. And then Martin Lawrence is like the comedy relief. He's got a family. And so like the whole joke in the first one is like he can't get any time to have sex with his wife. It's that sort of movie, do you know what I mean? It came out in 1995.
Right, okay, I see. I mean, that does sound fairly dated. It sounds like very much like a lot of the other comedies of that kind of era, like things like Rush Hour and things like that.
It is very similar. The first two are like super hyper masculine, in some places bordering on misogyny kind of territory. And this one, I felt like it broke down what it means to have those traits, and it gave both characters proper internal conflict. They were challenged, and you know, a lot of like kind of like their bullshit was challenged as well. And you just kind of sat there in the first half an hour of this movie thinking, oh my god, like Mike Lowry's now a character. I won't spoil what happens, but he goes through the ringer, shall we say, and then from there it's really tightly paced. There's actual consequences to things in the story. Again, it's hard without me spoiling too much, but there's the unexpected things happen. And it's just a really fun thrill ride. Like, I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd.
Oh wow! I mean, a hallmark of quality.
I've gotten to being quite harsh on Letterboxd, and I thought about it. I was like, 4 stars, really? Like, but no, you know what? It deserves it because there's not anything I would have done differently.
Did you give Little Women 3.5 stars? That's up for an Oscar.
No, I gave it 4 stars.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to. So, would you say Bad Boys for Life is better than Little Women, or on par with Little Women?
No, well, to me, I always do the Roger Ebert thing of like within the genre, did it set out to do what it was going to? I mean, I think it was you that said to me, isn't it Roger Ebert when he's watching like Hellboy, for example, he doesn't compare it to, When Harry Met Sally, he compares it to Superman the movie and Spider-Man 2 because they're like the benchmarks.
Yeah, and that's. I think he was quizzed on why he gave Beethoven 2 or something like a dog eat. I can't remember what the film's called.
Yeah,
it's one of them like the equivalent of like Beverly Hills Trout. I can give it 3.5 stars. People are like, what are you doing, Roger? And he was like, well, everyone wants to know if it's as good as Babe Pig in the City, not like.
Yeah. I think that makes sense to me. And in terms of other action comedies from recent years, I think it's one of the better ones. I probably haven't laughed this much intentionally at something since maybe 22 Jump Street.
Really? Is it that tone?
I think it's not that tone necessarily. It's more serious than that. But like in terms of my feelings in the cinema whilst watching it, in terms of how much I laughed and how much I was like, oh my god, that was fucking sick. Because there's some sweet action in this. And yeah, no, I'm converted. I'm a Bad Boys for lifer. So if they make another one, this one kind of ends on a final note. But I've seen rumblings from Sony that they could be making another one.
I mean, come on, if it does well at the box office.
Which it has done. Which I'm really happy about, because it's not a superhero movie or a Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shame when Terminator didn't do too well at the box office. By that same token, do you know what I mean? It's just
I think
nice
it is
to
a shame,
franchise.
but then also, like, they didn't market that very well. The trailers sucked, and it was okay.
No, because you went into that thinking it was going to be an absolute train wreck, and then you say it was the best one since 2. Like, not as good as 2.
It is the best one since 2, but I mean, what is that really saying anymore?
I mean,
I'd like to quite like to do a video on it eventually.
Can I be really honest? I actually quite like Rise of the Machines.
Oh yeah, I think it's a good guilty pleasure. But I'm just fascinated by how many times they've tried to make a Terminator 3.
It's a bit like Eminem albums, isn't it? Like, ever since Encore dropped, he's like, this new one, this is my comeback. I think he's on, like, let me think, I think he's on about 5 or 6 albums now, where he's like, disregard all the other comeback albums I've done. This is going to be the one that everyone's going to go, oh, he's still got it. Yeah, no, it's 6th album he dropped recently, and the whole album is just about how he's still got it, and like, fuck all the critics.
Are you not confident that he's still got it after the release of Venom?
I mean, that was probably his best track in 10 years.
Did you not like the references to Salad Bowls and Edgar Allan Poe?
No, I didn't. I'm too busy reeling at the line on his new album, which is what's called "Music to Be Murdered To" or something ridiculous.
Yeah, doesn't he reference like the Manchester bombing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's that monstrosity, but there's also the appalling line, "Like a liar's pants, I'm on fire," which, like, I mean, if that doesn't sign, he once made a song, dissing another rapper, where the chorus was, "No one wants to hear their grandfather rap." And it feels like there's a self-fulfilling prophecy here that now he's...
It's like what Quentin Tarantino says about getting out of the directing game, isn't it? Like, Eminem's no longer cool now, is he? He's too old.
I'd kind of want to see it. Like, imagine Tarantino was like an 80-year-old man like Scorsese, though, making a
No, but I get what Tarantino's saying in the sense that, it's a young man's game. Scorsese is the exception to the rule.
No, I guess
the
as well.
The exception that proves the rule.
And, as much as I'd like to see it, I imagine like watching Tarantino's equivalent of The Irishman, with Uma Thurman's feet having the aging process on, might be a bit strange to watch in 30 years or so.
Chris, I've had a spark of genius, right? What about the Venom song, but instead it's Scorsese? You ready? Scorsese.
It's not even the same number of syllables.
It's similar.
There isn't.
I think I've got something there.
I think, you know what? You upload that onto Bandcamp. You release that.
Well, I mean, it'd be better than some of the stuff that's on Bandcamp, wouldn't it? And SoundCloud.
No, I'm not sure. I mean,
I'm not about to rat on anyone, don't worry.
Wait, my Cloud Rap album.
Yeah. Got my SoundCloud mix in it. But yeah, we went off on a few tangents there. But yeah, Bad Boys for Life. If you like the first 2, I think you'd like this one. It's got a lot of kick-ass action, and it doesn't quite have that Michael Bay style. It's not quite as bombastic, but I think the story is much better in this one, and as I said, they feel like proper characters, and I had a good time, had a laugh, so I would definitely check it out if you are planning to, or if maybe you needed to be swayed after the first 2.
I mean, my impression of you watching Bad Boys was that you were having a laugh. I think we've had an Office reference in nearly every one of these podcasts, haven't we? So I was just trying to keep it up.
I'm not sure. I think we have.
Shouldn't have to. There we go. I've done it. I've hit the quota.
Sometimes Office references, sometimes Star Wars references. Different references for different podcast episodes. Bit clunky, that one?
Yeah, I mean, like, no worse than mine. So, speaking of The Office, I don't know how to segue, so let's just go to Doctor Who. How was that? Was that good?
Is it just me? And feel free to disagree. I feel like we're lagging a bit today. Is it because it's Monday? Someone's got a bad case of the Mondays.
No, I think it's... In all honesty, I think it's because I've got this cold that's going around at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, nothing too serious.
I can feel it brewing in my throat. It's gonna erupt any day now.
You made that seem more graphic. Like, I was imagining you getting like chest bursted by saying that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can feel it brewing. Did you say that was awesome?
Maybe this is the final Full Fat podcast.
What? And you get chest bursted by a Xenomorph? Well, that'd be a pretty cool way to end the channel.
Well, you know what? It'll come for you first, wouldn't it? Because your room's next to mine. So
no, but
you're fucking dead, mate.
No, but it might not come for me. It might just it might see me and then it'll recognise that a part of my DNA's in it. That's the plot of Resurrection, isn't it? Like, it's like... it's Alien 3, isn't it, where that happens? It, like, recognises that they put a bit of DNA in her, because that's... Isn't that the plot of Alien 3, is that Ripley has got, like, an egg in her, hasn't she?
The plot of Alien 3 is the characters that you loved from Aliens, all but Ripley, are killed off unceremoniously. And then she ends up on this prison planet. Is it Fury 191 or 161 or something like that? And then she discovers that there's an alien queen egg inside of her that's going to chest burst. So like her time's running out, and she's trying to find a way to basically not die. Or
and then she kills.
Maybe she's resided to her fate. I can't remember. It's been ages since I've seen it.
And she's trying to stop the alien. That's all. But she throws herself into the in a weird ending that's quite similar to Terminator 2, actually.
I guess so, a little bit. Yeah,
even
she
though
jumps into the fire, doesn't she?
Yeah.
But yeah, and then she's been hunted by a single alien again, isn't it? And it burst out of a dog, so it's got more like... I can't remember, is it called The Runner? Or something
it just feels like it's derivative of so many other films. Like, it bursts out the dog. That reminds me of The Thing. You know, when that happens. And as I say, like T2, and like there's so many just like it's such a weird mesh. I mean, we've always said we'd have loved to have seen The Planet of Wood. That was the original plan.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many different versions of it. You know, there's a version with Michael Biehn as the lead because they weren't sure if Ripley was going to come back.
Really?
And from what I understand, there's an Audible... It sounds like we're plugging Audible here. There's an Audible version of that script, like you can listen to.
Really?
Yeah. I've been meaning to listen to it.
I mean, oddly enough, speaking of scripts, I actually spent today on and off reading the script for The Social Network, just to remind me of how much of a perfect script it is.
I want to do a second movie.
Do you?
Need to do it. Well, after everything evil Mr. Zuckerberg's been up to. Can we say that online?
I'll probably shut it down. Wait, I think it's pound for pound the best script I've ever read. Like, it's not necessarily like the best movie I've ever seen. I mean, it does sit in the top.
What about that script I sent you in our first year at uni that was 5 pages long called Scars?
Scars? Oh, yeah. I like Scars. Basically, Matt sent me a script that was essentially unfilmable, given that we were 18, about like time travel and like things exploding and stuff like that, back when he didn't really know me and I was in charge of the budget for the student TV station, and I had to politely decline it, not because I didn't like it, but because it was like written by someone who was like, I have no concept of budget, so of course we'll blow up a building on this student TV station.
There was nothing that big in it. There was just a guy that was...
It had like time travel, like,
yeah,
like loads of like gunfights and stuff, and I was like,
did have gunfights in it.
Yeah.
I tell a lie, it wasn't 5 pages, was it? We couldn't have crammed all that into 5 pages.
I reckon it was about 7 pages. It was a weird number. You know, like when you're first writing scripts and you don't know structure.
It was basically like 2 scenes or whatever.
But it's weird, but you did know structure, but it's just like those weird lengths that you do, like some of your other scripts where they were like 11 pages, and you're just like, you would just never write an 11-page script now, would you?
Probably not.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you would never think, this is going to be a half-an-hour drama, 11 pages. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like weird, it's this weird kind of...
I like experimenting with length, though. That sounds suspect.
Yeah, it does.
It sounds strange, isn't it? We'll edit that out later.
No, we won't. It sounds like your Austin Powers.
Yeah, baby. Let me ask you something, Chris. Do I make you horny? Do I make you randy? Do I?
I am killing for Austin Powers 4.
Oh man, I would love it. I love it.
You know, I still think the best gag in the whole franchise is, and I still do this to this day when I'm crossing a road. You know, when they're like steamrollers coming towards him, and he's like, "No," and I suppose he's just like, "Move out the way," and he's got plenty of time, and he's just going, "Oh."
And doesn't he die and it cuts to like his family? Yeah, cool.
That's such a like early 2000s film, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Well,
Delta
no,
T.
what's the first one? Isn't
It's about 1999, I think. International Man of Mystery.
Is it? And then the spy who
The Spy Who Shagged Me.
me.
And they
we can't say shagged on the podcast.
You've said like fuck like several times.
Yeah, but shagg's a line I don't want to cross. Oh, there we go. I've done it.
Yeah, well, didn't you say shagadelic baby?
No, you're putting words in my mouth.
No, I think it's 1997 International Man of Mystery.
Okay.
But like, it's very of its time. I mean, I remember it's of the same time of I had it in a box set that you know those things that don't really exist anymore, where it's like
exactly what you're talking
five comedies and like they just don't exist anymore. And it was like International Man of Mystery, Rat Race. There's Something About Mary, 9 Months, which I've never watched because why would I?
Who's
and
that star?
Hugh Grant. And like these are all, and the other one is like Meet the Parents. So these are all like raunchy, like big, like game-changing films. Not game-changing.
Would you say Meet the Parents is game-changing?
No, but they're like big tentpole comedies of the early 2000s.
The game-changing classic, Meet the
Hey,
Parents.
it's got De Niro in. It's a quality film.
Really, would you say that De Niro's a hallmark of quality?
Yeah.
Alright, well I could list you off a few films that he's done that aren't very good.
Go
on. Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, King of Comedy. And I'm joking. Please, don't smite me. They're all fucking great.
You sound like a guy who really likes Joker. That's what you sound like right now.
Fuck me. No, I like all those movies, but I do not like Dirty Grandpa, The Intern, Little Fockers, or Joker.
Little Fockers is appalling.
It's awful, isn't
I
it?
really like Meet the Fockers as well. I think it's
Fockers,
just
yeah,
as funny
yeah.
as the original,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
really like the original.
Yeah.
That's actually my mum's favourite film. I
Isn't
think.
Meet the Fockers where he thinks he has a son?
Yeah,
And it turns out his father's actually like a baseball star, and they zoom in on the like poor Photoshop they've done of Ben Stiller as like a baseball.
Yeah, it's
star.
that.
Yeah.
Is that where you find out where I don't? Am I wrong? I think in Meet the Fockers. No, he finds out his first name's Gaylord in Meet the Parents. Definitely.
Yeah, what a dated joke now. Oh my
Gaylord
Lord.
Focker?
Isn't the second one the one where he's like, he gets injected with truth serum and then he's like up on stage and he's like, is he saying something about he masturbated to Pam's mum or something like that?
Yeah, because I think
Or he's like, oh, when they say that that's what a woman will look like when they get older, they look like their mum, and if that's what's going to happen, then I'm a looking and I'm a liking.
Yeah,
and
that is that
everyone's
one.
like horrified at the dinner, obviously.
Because isn't Meet the Parents is just someone else in the family's getting married and he's just coming around for the first time, and then he proposes to her like near the end, doesn't he? And then in Meet the Fockers, it's their wedding, and then they're coming to like meet his parents. I think I've not seen them in so long. I've seen Meet the Parents quite a few times, but Meet the Fockers I've not seen in so long. But I believe that's their wedding.
I'd quite like to watch them at Christmas. They feel like Christmassy movies to me.
They're quite. Is it Thanksgiving? When is he coming round in the original? It might actually be Christmas. I've not seen the original.
I've got nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Where his little cat, Geppetto.
Do you think you could milk the following animals? Giraffe.
No.
Rhino.
No.
Judoon.
Was that your segue?
Well, it's better than Office reference. Don't have one, actually. Doctor Who.
Was that an impression of my voice? Why do I sound like Christopher Eccleston? Talking about Heaton Park. Can I just say, Heaton Park is quite nice. I'll get his...
turns round and shits on you. But yeah, let's not beat around the bush anymore. Otherwise, I'll talk about Bad Boys for Life for another 90 minutes.
Yeah, you will.
Please go see it. It's great. Fugitive of the Judoon. Episode 5 of Series 12. We're now at the 50% mark. Chris, what did you think?
I'm going to go out there and say I actually thought it was the best of the series.
Ever? Better than Revelation of the Daleks?
No, the best of Series 12, and also that's your 10-point standard, that Peter Davidson...
Yeah, your favourite Doctor?
See, you make it sound like either I do love Peter Davidson, which I don't, or I really hate him, which I don't. I'm just sort of really indifferent to Peter Davidson.
You're the one saying all this stuff. I didn't say any of this.
No, I'm saying that's what you're inferring. You know what I mean?
Fine. I don't think I was.
I must say that Revelation of the Daleks is actually one of my favourite Peter Davidson stories. Do you want to talk about that instead?
Lame.
It's a good story. Tegan leaves quite emotionally. So it's one of the few. It's actually a bit. The ending of it is a bit like Kill the Moon, except imagine if Clara was just like I'm out and just walks off.
I see.
So it's actually for the time it's actually quite it's got some cool emotional beats to it. It's the second best Davidson companion exit behind Adric.
My favourite one's the one with the licorice men.
That's not Peter Davidson.
Candy Dimension.
The Candy Man.
I know it's not Peter
The
Davidson.
Candyman.
Is it the Candymen?
Yeah, the Happiness Patrol.
That's it, the Happiness Patrol. Yeah, what a crock of shit.
But the villain's got the... You know that episode gets reappraised now as like a scathing satire? Like, people actually quite like the Happiness Patrol now. The best Sylvester McCoy story is Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Do you know that one?
Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. Yeah.
Gods of Ragnarok.
He just does magic tricks.
It's pretty fun. It's quite doctory to stall by doing some amateur magic tricks that aren't good.
What did you think of today, other than that it was best in the series?
You
meant series 12.
Series 12, yeah. I think it just did Spyfall for me. Not by a lot. Like, it's hard because I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the pacing. There was so much of it that I'm going, whoa. The fact that Captain Jack coming back wasn't the most interesting thing in the episode.
I cannot believe that was kept under wraps.
But I can't believe that it's barely that interesting relative to the rest of the episode. And like, it's probably...
Well, I think they did that strategically, didn't they? They revealed Jack early on in the episode, so you're like, oh, that was a big reveal for the episode, now the story's going to kick in, and then no, the whole thing's building up to a second reveal.
And the fact that he never even got to interact with the Doctor, I almost quite liked, because you thought the whole thing was just going to crescendo with Jack, but actually Jack was just tangential. It felt very much like, you know, in like episodic shows, like long arc shows, like things like Heroes or Breaking Bad or anything like that, where it's a long list, and they'll have an action episode. So like in Breaking Out, they might show you something like Salud, where there's a lot going on all at once. But they also have episodes like bit by...
I haven't seen that one.
Have you not seen Salad?
No.
In Breaking Bad?
I've seen it in Breaking Bad. I haven't seen it in Breaking Out.
Did I say Breaking Out?
Yeah, I've seen it in Way of the Dragon. Not
I actually can't believe I said Breaking Out. Okay, Breaking Bad.
I was trying to be the IT guy.
I know you were. Yeah. But you have episodes like Salud, which are like go, action, and then you have episodes like Bit by Dead Bee in Series 2, which literally exists to like extend the arc. And I felt like this, in many ways, it reminded me a bit, and I don't like this story, so I feel silly comparing it, but it reminded me a bit of Name of the Doctor, in that there wasn't much of a plot. It was more like things were happening, but it sustained my attention. It was very exciting. But for me, it's very hard to place because I really enjoyed it. And I think for the moment it's the best of the series. But my worry is that if everything that it sets up goes to shit, would I watch it again? Probably not, because I'm watching it with a view of, well, that never came to anything. Well, that was disappointing.
I agree. I think the series as a whole, I think it's a good time to talk about the series as a whole, because this is pushing the whole arc forward, has been way better than I could have anticipated. But some of the reveals which happen in this episode could easily go to pot. I mean, we should just talk about the fact that there's another Doctor, played by Joe Martin. It feels like it was. I mean, did you guess before it happened?
I guess you know what was a big giveaway when you put the clues together. Why was the first shot of the episode a bloody watch?
Yeah,
for like 30 seconds, and I thought, all right, I knew straight away because like it's just classic Doctor Who. Of course, he wasn't the fugitive. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was just obvious, wasn't it? I'm turning myself. I was like, the second he was like in control, I was like, he's not the fugitive, because otherwise we've got no story.
I also thought it was a big red flag when, as to it being like a la Human Nature, the chameleon arc, when she scanned both of them and she was like, oh, they're human.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they could be hiding as Time Lords.
I didn't think she was going to be the Doctor, but I did think they were Time Lords. Because
did you worry when she pulled the gun out after she'd absorbed the energy that she was going to be like the Rani or something?
Yeah, I really did. I mean, it's funny actually. I was having this conversation the other day. I kind of feel now that we've had a female master. Oh, these classic Who fans are going to hate me for this. I kind of feel like now that we've had a female master, the Rani's kind of redundant, because for me, the Rani is just a female master. There's not really anything different to her.
Well, I guess that was her purpose in Classic, because they weren't swapping genders, were they? But now that they do, maybe there's a new place for her in some other way.
I just don't think she needs to. I mean, she's in 2 stories in the actual TV show, and they're both not very good stories, so I don't really feel... No. I feel like she's only iconic because she's like the female master, but like I have no interest in having her back, so having something like that, or it be, I'm the meddling monk.
Do you think it's a bit reductive to be like, oh, well, she's the female equivalent of this thing, like maybe she came back, she'd be... Yeah, her own character is something interesting.
She could be. I just think like my concern with bringing her back is that it would just be a pie end to Classic, and I don't think she was ever really a very developed character on the show. So there is ground to make her interesting. I'm not saying that, and I wouldn't just be like, you know what I mean? I'm not one of those people. What I'm more saying is that like her place in the universe, like she was quite a reductive character. It was just like, what if we reskin the Master as a woman, but we don't have the gumption to actually make the Master a woman, so it'd be the equivalent of creating like...
There was no way they ever would have done that in classic.
No, that's what I'm saying. So for me now, the Rani's place in the Whoniverse is kind of weird, because if you brought her back, what would you do to differentiate her from the Master? Because she is a reskin.
Yeah.
That's more what I mean. It's like, it would be difficult for me to get hyped about the Rani coming back, because I would think, what's her purpose now in the broader universe when her backstory it's so similar, and the fact that the Master and the Rani have like worked together and things like that, like it just
definitely a thirst from fans, I feel, for more Time Lord characters, though, isn't there?
Yeah, that would be the only reason to bring her back. But why does it have to be a Rani? Why not just at that point give us something? I almost feel like linking her to the Rani might be a bit lazy, giving us a really awesome Time Lord for...
I would love to see the Corsair. I always thought that character seemed very interesting.
Yeah.
Even though it was only like mentioned for like what? A few throwaway references in Doctor's Wife.
I mean, all the things that they talk about when he's referring to the Time War and things like that sound interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's more scope for me for the kind of things that they've laid, or like the Curator and things like that. Like, their characters I would rather see than the Rani.
Isn't there a Nightmare child in the Time War?
Yes.
It's interesting that there's now a Timeless child, isn't it?
I mean, I'm curious what that means. I mean, there's so many plates spinning at the moment. To Chibnall's credit, though, we're allegedly, this isn't confirmed, but we're allegedly getting Cybermen in the 8th story of the episode.
I feel like the fact Jack references it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that people are under the impression at the moment that the 8th episode concerns the Cybermen and that it may be set with Mary Shelley. But what interests me is that if Jack's saying that and that is episode 8, does this mean that because of that? Because why would you introduce... I mean, maybe this is Chibnall's way of doing it. We've not seen this in Doctor Who before. It'd be quite cool to just seed in a story that's coming in a couple of weeks that has no tangent, like, layer to the greater arc. But it speaks to me that this could be like a 3-parter finale rather than a 2-part finale.
I mean, even the way it's worked so far, it's felt more arc-heavy akin to something like Series 6. I mean, we had the 2-part opening, didn't we? We've had 2 standalone adventures, but they've kind of fed in terms of, the companions' mistrust of the Doctor, and now we've come straight back in with another arc episode.
No, completely.
And obviously, the next episode leads in at the end of this one. Maybe we'll have a bit more connective tissue there. Who knows? And then from there, it's only 2 more standalone episodes to the 2-part finale, isn't it?
Well, they've just announced the name of the 7th episode of the show, which is "Can You Hear Me?"
That's with that old guy in the TARDIS, isn't it?
Allegedly, yeah, but they're not really giving anything
people
away
think he
yet.
could be like the Black Guardian or something.
And people were thinking that, but I feel like it'd be weird to bring him back in time for the finale. If you know what I mean, like, it would feel weird to go kind of like, we've brought back this classic villain who's like epic and big. It'd be like bringing back Omega for like a 1-episode stint. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Do you not think this whole series has been about like making the most incredible reveals, things that you wouldn't think you'd cram into one season?
Yeah.
So, and also there's been a big focus on Gallifrey, different Time Lords. I wouldn't be that surprised. And also, we don't know what Chibnall's limits are yet. Like, I feel like under Moffat, after a few years had passed, you'd know he's not going to do this, he's not going to do that. I don't think it'll be this twist, etc. Whereas Chibnall, we still don't know. He could just go completely nuts.
I mean, I do think it's actually very, very kind of interesting that I think this is the only pure arc episode I can think of in New Who. Like, there have been episodes like Gridlock, for example, in Series 3, the You Are Not Alone, but that's just more an end card to a story. This is the first time in a very long while that we've just had... I think the last episode we had like this, to be fair, was probably Extremis, which was more about building and building and building, but that wasn't really for a series arc. This is such a weird... It's like an X-Files mythology episode, this, right? It's.
Do you not think something like Utopia kind of feels that?
But that's near the finale, that's what I'm saying. This is weird to place it in the middle of the series. This is what I mean, like, it's weird to have a mid-series arc episode. This is the kind of thing that you would do in a longer form American drama.
It feels like in the RTD era, this story would have been the first part of the 2-part finale.
That's or Utopia's equivalent.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that then, if we're getting this Cyberman story and Jack's warned about the Cybermen, Can You Hear Me could be a reference to that's what Whittaker is shouted to her when they're in the other realm. In Spyfall, I'm going to call it the Upside Down, even if it's not. That's what she shouts out into the ether, like, "Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?" I'm curious then whether this is also a arc episode as well, because next week I think it's called Praxis. next week's. Practices.
You're wondering if it ties into the spies from the
Kind
first
of, because it's talking about being in 3 locations. And it's that one that we've seen, that shot we've seen repeatedly in all the trailers of Jodie Whittaker running towards a body on the beach. It's the Bat one next week. Again, another thing we've seen. And you know what? Like, the 2 episodes along with this that were spotlighted in the trailer a lot were Spyfall and Fugitive of Judoon. And both of these had shots that we thought we knew the context for and didn't. A la them all walking out the TARDIS and Sacha Dhawan being edited out.
Yeah.
And you seeing Graham in that other realm thinking he'd been teleported somewhere, and that's Jack's ship. So I wouldn't be surprised, given that this one has had a lot of trailer highlighting.
Very
This is
interesting,
another.
isn't it? By the way, Jack's ship, crappy production values, wasn't it? It's obviously just a console in like a cathedral or something.
I mean, I take that as a necessity of hiding his identity.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, they did have to. To his credit, apart from what you called a boomer moment hours before the episode, there would have been no way to guess it. I know a few Doctor Who pages
when
were
John
saying,
Barrowman retweeted it, didn't he, before
Yeah.
it came out? Yeah, that was silly of him, wasn't it?
A few people were guessing he'd be back, but I also saw rumours like Chloe Webber was back and stuff. So it's the equivalent of like, how do I put it? There was no substance behind the Jack rumours beyond.
No.
Wouldn't it be cool if Jack was back?
Also, people have been saying in multiple episodes for the last... It's been literally 10 years since he was last on the main show. Jack might be back in this episode. But the only thing that does worry me is I rewatched it on the commute back before we did the podcast, and I did notice after his scenes are done, he says he will see the Doctor, just not soon. And obviously they kept it under wraps by filming in one location with a handful of actors. That's how they preserved that surprise. So I'm starting to wonder if maybe he doesn't crop up in the rest of this season, and maybe he'll come back next year. I mean, because that would be how you'd keep it under wraps, wouldn't it? I
mean, I start to get more and more the feeling that he is playing a longer game, and I don't foresee everything that we've seen this series. If anything, I feel like my prediction for this finale is it's going to open up another can of worms. A bit like the Series 5 finale resolves a lot of the plot strands, but then you're straight into what is the silence when his TARDIS gets taken over and stuff. I'm pretty confident that's what's going to happen now. It's
starting to feel like a different show than what we got before under Moffat and RTD in a good way, because now I'm starting to pivot, as you say, towards maybe this 5-year plan is legit. Maybe everything we set up last year and that's feeding into this year is going to go into next year in a way that we didn't quite get with the previous showrunners.
I mean, we've talked about it before in person. I don't think we've talked about it on this podcast. The more and more I watch this series, the more I'm starting to think that Chibnall was under a lot of constraints in Series 11 to kind of take it back to basics, and maybe that hampered him. Whereas this series, if anything, this is almost the opposite. This is maximalism at its not necessarily at its finest. The flaws are almost too much going on. When there's flaws, it's that there's 100 ideas being thrown at the wall. Whereas in Series 11, it was like one idea being stretched for 50 minutes. And I don't know, like there's no way to definitively know this until maybe we'll get a writer's tale from Chibnall in like 10 years. But it feels to me like there was a lot of constraint and pressure with with Series 11 of going back to basics. And I think that's been very clear with this, in that he made the Doctor impenetrable and lovely and almost unlikable to a point that it was kind of, she had no personality. Yeah. This series has gone far and wide to make her really unpredictable.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, that bit in this episode where Ryan was like, "Oh, come on, we know you," and she was like, "I've had so many faces, I've lived for so long, you don't know me." And then for the companions to hit back with like, "No, well, we do." That was a great moment. And also, it's building on their characters. I feel like they've legitimised themselves as like a really strong TARDIS team. I would like to see them go into the next series. And I wasn't saying that at the end of Series 11. I probably could have taken or leaving. I probably could take or leave the Series 11 TARDIS team.
But I think that's the thing. Like, as well, I know there's been some criticism about like sort of like underdevelopment. And I do think there's underdevelopment in some of the characters. Like, I don't feel like Graham's had a lot to do this year necessarily, for example. Although I am now loving this running joke of people thinking he's the Doctor.
Yeah.
But like Jack, because of course he would be.
Also, I just knew Jack was going to be great. Doesn't he say a line like, "Oh yeah, a little bit great, still sexy"?
Yeah. What I think really stood out here is that although obviously RTD was the showrunner when Jack was on Doctor Who, and obviously Moffat created Captain Jack with RTD and the Empty Child, I think it's very clear that, you know, Chibnall had such a presence on Torchwood. And I think when we look at the writing credits for this episode, which are Vinay Patel and Chris Chibnall, I think it's very clear to me that Chris Chibnall's hand in this was writing the Jack scenes, because it feels like the Jack we've seen in Torchwood. And I think, to me, like, it feels like very, like, he's not being just written in a cameo way. You know, sometimes when characters get brought back and they just, particularly, I mean, this was by the same writer, but Rose in Series 4, for example, just doesn't feel like Rose.
No.
This just felt like we just picked up exactly where we left off.
In the same outfit, same haircut, doesn't look like he's aged a day. I'm sure if we actually put comparisons between Dead of Time and this, he would have aged, but he looks timeless. And it was just a lot of fun to see him again, wasn't it?
No, I honestly, I have so few complaints with this episode. I think what it does more is just open up a can of worms to things. It's fascinating to me, this angle that they're going with Jenny Whittaker, because I've always loved the idea that the Doctor's unpredictable. I've always loved the most alien moments of the character, and so it's really fascinating to me that they're really going down this line of, and we said this in, I'm so almost glad that we were right here, not because I'm glad that we were right because we're correct, but more that I'm happy that this has turned out. But it seems
there's a little bit of that.
But it seems the angle they're going with is, can the companions trust the Doctor? Is she who she says she is? Is she unpredictable? I loved the opening that was just seeded in, that she's just been like ignoring them for a bit because she's looking for the Master.
Yeah, that was great.
What a cool way to sew that in. And like, you know, in Orphan 55, an episode obviously you liked, I didn't like a lot, but the fact that they were like, you've been a bit moody. Love that. Like, and they've
She's
just been
got a purpose now, hasn't she?
Yeah.
And also, you're right. It's so cool to think that when the romps end, like when the Night of Terror ended last week, she said goodbye to her companions and she went and just sat and lamented on the destruction of Gallifrey on that hill. Could I make the case to you, Mr. Crystal Cell, that the Doctor we see, played by Joe Martin, I think you'll agree with me, is a parallel Earth Doctor?
I mean, we've had this discussion. We've been having this discussion all day, really, haven't we? I am now 90% on this.
I would be shocked if she isn't an alternate universe Doctor, because it would seem like the easiest thing in the world, and also the worst thing to happen from a story perspective, for Jodie to immediately be like, oh, well, she must be from my past, and for this other Doctor to be like, yeah, you must be from my past, and for her just to sort of run with it by the end of the episode and be thinking, oh, well, how can that all fit together? The fact that they don't recognise each other, but they still have all the same, you know, idiosyncrasies, says to me that she's from a parallel Earth. Also, she does things that I don't think the Doctor would do. I know the Doctor can do some bad things, but, for example, the companion, he spends his entire life looking after her, doesn't he, like Martha? Except he marries her, he's clearly wildly in love with her, and then he dies, and then when she becomes the Doctor again, there's not a single moment where she's like, oh, my companion's dead, indicating that she does not give a shit about him, which is not Doctor-y at all, is it?
No.
And then I think the biggest thing, obviously, is she's using a gun, isn't she?
And she's working for the Time Lords.
Yeah.
She's a contract worker.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of evidence building up to this. I mean, particularly, I've not been one of these people who has said, how has the Sacha Dhawan Master come about? Because actually, it was never really addressed how the Master escaped the vortex at the end of time.
It's a given he comes back eventually.
I don't care. But, that being said, he was in contact with some beings, the Kasavin, from a parallel universe. So it's been established. What I think the giveaway for me is, and as I say, like, Chibnall didn't do this in Series 11, but from Broadchurch, he's very good at laying ground for things and bringing it to the forefront episodes later. In Spyfall, they were looking at that map, and she originally thought it was multiverses, which to me concedes that the Doctor's aware that's a concept, right?
Yep.
And she's been to parallel universes before. She saw the Solar Tract in Series 11,
Yep.
Age of Steel, etc. She then goes, no, it can't be. That, to me, why would you stop bringing up concepts of parallel universes? You know, why would you? And then we've had this. I think it's interesting that Orphan 55 ends in a way of, this is one of many possible futures.
Yes.
And I like the idea, and I don't think that Jack was from a parallel universe, and I doubt these will be, they're obviously not Lumic Cybermen, but I think you could tie this all together in a way to say, because Gallifrey itself is in a pocket universe still, isn't it? At the end of Heaven Sent. It's protected, etc. Who's not to say that what really happened on Gallifrey was they're just shattering the boundaries of the universe? And so you've got this Doctor bleeding through, you've got all these other things bleeding through. Maybe the Master. I've got this suspicion the Master's from a parallel universe.
That would clean up a lot of stuff, wouldn't it? Because it would still maintain Missy's final end that she redeemed herself, but we'd still get the Master, wouldn't we? And this Master can, in fact, just cross over from that parallel Earth and then stay here. And also, like, who's to say he doesn't end up in cahoots with this kind of evil Doctor, because I do think some of the things she did were reprehensible. She lets is it Gat get killed, and like she murders her, and I know the Doctor's done some bad things, but there's elements to this character, this version of the Doctor, which I feel like they're hanging a lantern on the fact that this is off kilter, and not in a way that, like, because obviously we've seen that rumour that she could be before Hartnell. I don't feel like if she is before Hartnell and she kind of moulds into this heroic figure, this heroic Doctor, that's really excusable.
I don't
necessarily I'll never get over that she killed that companion, or she let him die rather.
I don't necessarily think that it's inexcusable. More, it's just not interesting.
It's not interesting.
It's lazy.
But I think it would be really weird, and I think it'd be a tough pill to swallow, that this Doctor who's immoral just grows into Hartnell, if that's really where they're going.
Sorry.
Do you see what I mean?
No,
it's weird. Whereas I feel like it makes much more sense, and it's also, as you say, more interesting if it's a Doctor that's been running parallel in another dimension. So this is the equivalent of like the Jodie Whittaker, the 13th, and she's had a load of different regenerations, and her path has diverged in some way. She never got a sonic screwdriver. She instead picked up a gun. She treats her companions like servants. I think that's a really interesting characterization. And also, it's the one thing from that whole Parallel Earth arc that we got in Series 2 that I didn't really explore, because I remember as a kid thinking, when we went to that Parallel Earth, well, where's the Parallel Doctor?
Exactly, and it's something that you could heal quite well with storytelling, do you know what I mean? Because you could just come in at it from an angle of, oh, well, the universe is falling apart, yada, 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 crack in time kind of thing. Hey, I fixed it, and that allows for all these cool ideas to exist, while simultaneously not pissing off fans. And not that, sometimes you have to do risky things, you have to piss off fans. I'm sure, the War Doctor inherently is something that can piss off
that's the
fans.
thing as well, isn't it? The War Doctor, we've already done the secret Doctor between the regenerations. So if it turns out that she's before Hartnell, or indeed in between a regeneration, that's the exact same reveal again. I don't think Chibnall's that kind of writer. I think he's going to give us something a little bit different. I hope so, anyway.
I hope
it's Parallel Earth.
I hope so, and I think the amount of ideas that have been thrown at the wall this season. I mean, this is the age-old question, isn't it? Does Hellbent existing make Heaven Sent worse?
I don't think so.
So if this finale is god awful, does that make Fugitive of the Judoon worse?
I think it's different because Heaven Sent exists as its own romp. Apart from the end point where he says, "Oh, to that kid, tell Gallifrey I'm here, blah blah blah, whatever."
Hybrid is me.
But apart from all that stuff, it exists as like this romp, this horror labyrinth that he has to try and escape from, and then the resolutions are all tight. And also, it's really more about the aftermath of losing Clara, isn't it? Whereas this is all dependent on where do we go next, when are we going to see Ruth again, / the Doctor, when are we going to see the Master factory, and when are we going to see Jack again? Do you know what I mean? What's the Timeless Child? All of those questions are running through this episode, and they'll run into the finale. So I feel like it's a different kettle of fish.
How would you feel if the rest of these episodes were all like arc heavy? Because it almost be something. I mean, I guess Series 6 comes closest, but it would almost be something we've not done before. Because that would be. I know you're a bigger defender of Series 6 than me, and to be honest, it does rank higher and higher for me every time I watch it. But I've always found it a bit jarring, especially because the series was split in two. So it basically has two big arc things and arc-based finales that then go, now let's jot off on adventures. Which I guess the Doctor's distracted it himself. But...
Yes. Well, that's always been the problem I've had with Series 6, and just the idea of doing an arc-heavy series of Doctor Who. I feel like they always try and have their cake and eat it. If you want to go with the Rusty Davies model, where we start off with a little bit of a light arc, and then it seems like random adventures, and then by the end it all ties together. That works very well because you get your Monster of the Week stories, but you also get something running through. And I think Moffat does that really well with Series 8 because they all feel like standalone stories, and the actual arc that you're going through with that one is more between the Doctor and Clara, isn't it? And Clara and Danny Pink.
Yes.
And then the Missy is kind of just in the background teased, and that's one of the better structured Moffat series, I think. This one, it does the exact same trick they do in the Day of the Moon, where they've had this big arc-heavy story, and at the end the Doctor's like, well, we could follow that up, or we could just go off on a random adventure. Who's up for some adventures? And this one, it's like, oh, the TARDIS has distracted me with these things that are going off. Shall we go and check it out? It's like, yeah, sure. It's like, that's exactly what the audience doesn't want to see, isn't it? I know Doctor Who's gotten accustomed to doing random stories that are one and done, but if we're going to go arc-heavy, let's just do it. Let's just give it a go one year.
But I must say, is the idea that this is a distraction going to feed into this story? Like, what if Jodie Whittaker can't perform as well in this story because she's distracted by all the events that have just happened or something? You know,
that would be interesting.
Because that's to me is how what should be happening in an ideal world, is that the events that you're seeing in these mythology episodes is impacting characters. So I know you didn't watch it, but for example in Fringe they had this iconic, it's probably the best episode of the show, arc episode called Peter in series 2, where basically the central, I mean, you know, the show's not so old now, it's not really a spoiler, and basically the premise has always been, you know, that there's two central characters, one's a scientist and one's the scientist's son, and you know that like the son, there's something not quite there because you saw the son's grave at the end of the first series, and you're like, what is it? And then they do this flashback episode, and it turns out basically the dad perfected like crossing between parallel worlds and nicked a parallel version of his. Basically, his son was terminally ill.
Okay.
His son was terminally ill, and he went into a parallel world, right, and nicked that version of their son.
Oh, that's cool.
But then, of course, the parallel version of him clocked what had happened, so he was trying to perfect a way to cross universes, and that's the whole basis, the whole fallout of the rest of the series. That you find out is that all the actions that have happened leading up to that are as a consequence of that. However, that doesn't come to the forefront until the finale, but between then you've got about 5 episodes, and they're all where basically he's making wrong calls. The scientist, the dad, Walter Bishop, is making these wrong calls, and he's distracted, and he's in his own head, and all the other characters are like, why are you being like this? And he's like, oh, I can't tell you, kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And then it all comes to the forefront in the finale.
Right.
That's how I would kind of like to see this series go, is Jodie Whittaker keeps making almost mistakes, or she keeps treating her companions a bit shittily, like she did at the end of this episode, and you see that. And then in the finale, it all kind of comes together. I think that's a way to kind of meld the two quite well.
I don't think arc heavy means it has to be, we're on the hunt for the master. Episode 2, we're still hunting for the master. Episode 3, we're still hunting for the master. I get what you're saying in terms of they can still go to other planets and there's different threats. But what was indicated by the end of this episode feels very much to me like what Day of the Moon is to Curse of the Black Spot, where we just go off on a complete tangent. And it's like, well, do we not care about finding River Song? Because that seems like a Mahusive deal, doesn't it? You want to like, try and find her, and it seems like a similar thing again, because Ruth just drops her off. I keep calling her Ruth. The other Doctor, just drops her off, doesn't she?
Yes, she does.
Why is she not like, no, we need to find out, we need to work out what's wrong here? But it's a very Doctor Who thing to do, isn't it? In terms of the makeup of the show of, well, the arc's done here now. It's time for the end of the episode, so now I have to go back to adventuring.
Do you think she actually knows? Because the Doctor inherently would be curious about something like that. So do you think she actually doesn't know what's up?
I could see her having an inclination that she's parallel universe, but needs more time to sort of corroborate her sources. Because
if she's only just regained her memories, maybe she knows she hid herself in a parallel universe. Do you know what I'm saying?
I liked the thing that you mentioned to me earlier, where it's like the Earths have kind of, or the universes have bled together. So Whittaker and the Roof Doctor both don't realise that their universes have collided. That's why they both think they're the Doctor in their own universe. But it turns out it's 2 universes in one.
I mean, this won't happen. But can you imagine if everything you've seen from Series 11 onwards took place in a parallel universe?
I was wondering about that. What, like, so Whittaker's the not Doctor, and then we find out that Roof is the one that follows on from Al Capaldi kind of thing.
No, I'm going the other way round. Or when the TARDIS went all to shit in the end of Twice Upon a Time, she went through a parallel universe, and everything you've seen up until this point is just like her in a completely different time.
So that's why like Torchwood and Unit have gone,
and all this other stuff. I don't think it's good. I'm just saying it'd be. I don't think
it's necessarily bad. I think that'd be interesting.
It'd just be a cool reveal, like, oh, we've been watching this thing, and our version of Earth is just slightly off.
Well, also, I'm wondering if Yaz is going to be revealed to be not quite right, because in the first episode there's that bit where she gets captured, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And all the other spies had all their DNA changed. And I remember when we first watched it, we were wondering, oh, was something happened to her? She had her DNA changed?
And then she just
maybe now that we're midway into the season, I'm starting to think, no, she was fine.
It just seems a weird thing to do. I mean, these things have come out of nowhere. Almost People just drops that Amy has been done. I think it's interesting seeing what the rest of these writing lineups actually are for this series, because that was by Vinay Patel, who wrote Demons of the Punjab, which, I mean, a lot of people did like. I didn't like it.
I thought, well, I mean, we've covered it a few times now, haven't we?
Oh yeah, I'm not.
I don't like it.
But I thought this week, I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Next time his name's on something, if he was on Series 13 writing team, I'd be like, I'm down for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And we got Peter McTee next week, who wrote Kablam. So this could be interesting, because I thought that was one of the better stories of Series 11. And
Yes.
if the quality level has upped since Series 11, maybe Peter McTee's going to give us a great story. And then we've got two unknowns. And who knows?
I do have more faith.
Oh, I do. I absolutely do. I think this series has had a tighter vision. I think it's been bolder. I think it's more daring.
If it can end on a high note, and there's a lot of promise for Series 13, I'm thinking maybe we'll keep going towards greatness.
So you, almost weirdly, because I feel like Moffat and Davies knocked it out of the park from the get-go.
Yeah.
And then their series is, I think... actually, Davies less so, but Moffat's series, I think, just, you know, with the Renaissance under Capaldi, but under each Doctor, Moffat's seasons got slightly worse, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I think Series 2 is a bit of a sophomore slump, even though I think it gets unfairly slated. There are aspects of, like, Tennant's character that aren't there. If this gets better every year, you say about, like, Series 13... 14, we could be getting some absolute...
Well, I mean, if they do carry on these kind of threads for that long, and more surprises come along, and the characterisation for every character gets fleshed out further and further, then I don't see why not. It's just strange, isn't it? Because we're so used to Series 1, Series 5, the first series of each respective showrunner being the best, as you say.
And then if you count 8 as a reboot, that's one of the best series of the show.
Yes, it is. But I can't help but wonder if the goodwill that was lost from Series 11 being shit, felt by both of us, has kind of squandered the potential of this series, because I feel like a lot of people I've seen on Twitter have been saying, oh, I'm not watching it, should I bother anymore? Or, you know, I thought the last series was shit, is this series still shit? And it's like, well, if a lot of these ideas were being played with in the last series, I would have felt a lot more confident about the Chibnall era. Could you imagine if Jack had popped up how he did, and if Ruth had popped up how she did, and we'd gotten the Master, and we, more importantly, if last season we'd have gotten... What does the Doctor do when she's not with the companions? What's haunting her? What's coming for her? That would have made her more interesting.
I mean, you can go back to the very first Look Who's Talking we did for Series 11. I really liked The Woman Who Fell to Earth. I thought it showed a lot of promise. And they squandered that promise, you know. And so if The Woman of Earth had happened, and then we'd have had, like, these kind of stories, as you say, that would have been a really good series. It's only the fact that you had this really interesting back-to-basics approach. And The Woman Who Fell to Earth, to me, felt very fresh and very new and had a distinct vision. And the rest of the series felt like it was just a identikit, like, kind of, if someone who hadn't really watched the show roughly described to be a series, is what Series 11 was.
Yeah. What would you give this episode on the
Full Fat Milk?
I realise as well we haven't done the rankings for the Zoomilks on episode 3 or 4. I don't think we did anyway.
No, I'm pretty sure I gave All from 55 a skimmed.
So did we just miss out last week?
Yeah, which, to be honest, now I think about it, I'd give a close to full fat, but probably a semi.
Yeah, I'd sit it in between. This is the problem with this 3-point ranking system, isn't it? I'd give it a half, a semi-skimmed and a half. It's like between semi-skimmed and full fat. Is that,
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, then I'd give this one a full fat milk.
Yeah, I think whether I watch it again will very heavily depend on, and it's an issue that I think I have with Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon, that I feel like you enjoy Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon in their own right, regardless of all the kind of stuff that didn't go anywhere. Whereas for me, like, I am hoping that I don't have the same opinion that I have for those two stories, which is, if it all squanders, do I enjoy watching it? Not really, because I watch it and I go, this is really well executed, but I know it doesn't go anywhere, and this is well executed, and I know it doesn't go anywhere. And I would just like to hope that this episode, even if it's disappointing, it isn't so awful that I consider it the episode that started the thing that brought the series down.
Do you think Jack's going to come back this season?
No.
I think either.
I think if he does, the only thing I could see is they had him in a studio a lot for a day.
Yeah.
Does he come back via a transmission link or something, a la in Journey's End?
Because if he does come back this season, he can't be in any exterior scenes, can he? Because it would have come out, it would have leaked.
Yeah.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because maintaining the surprise meant they had to shoot it the way they did, which was awesome that they maintained the surprise. It wasn't like John Sim all over again. But at the same time, I do kind of want him to just pop up substantially this year. I don't have to wait till 2021 to see my Captain Jack back.
I mean, I'll be very sad if Sacha Dhawan doesn't come back as well.
I'd be very surprised if Sacha Dhawan doesn't come back.
I'm just hoping it's not just they keep using him in flashbacks going, everything you knew was a lie, like, I want him there in the finale.
Well, maybe we should place bets on whether or not these characters will be in the finale.
I think it's odd to set up the seed with the lone Cybermen,
Yeah.
and then just not bring that into the finale. But maybe it's something that I'm not used to, for example. So maybe they're sowing the seed for episode 8 into episode 5. That's kind of cool. I suppose I don't want the finale to be too overstuffed, so I think no Cybermen in the finale. But what happens with the Cybermen leads into the finale.
So if I list you off a series of names,
yeah,
you can tell me if you think they're going to be in the finale.
Yeah.
The Doctor.
Most likely, yes.
The Doctor.
The Roof Doctor.
Well, yeah, but she's not the Roof Doctor.
Okay, but yeah, the Doctor, yeah.
All three companions.
Yeah.
Sacha Dhawan's master.
You know what? I'm going to say no. I think he's going to... I don't think he'll be prominent. I think he'll be there in the background, but I don't think he will be there, but I just don't think he'll be prominent. There's something about it. I just don't see him being there.
Rassilon.
Oh, I hope not.
Captain Jack Harkness.
Only by interior transmission link, not running around with the Doctor.
Okay. The guy in Fear Hut that says he's reporting you to the council.
I fucking hope so.
That'd be incredible, wouldn't it?
The Pating.
I fucking hope not.
Now, what would you do if the Timeless Child was the Pating?
I'd stop watching.
No,
until Chibnall changed hands.
But it was like Chibnall was like, that's my like the long game from series 1. Like I wanted to set up the idea of the Pating and then like show you.
Is he going to be like George Lucas, like the Pating's the key to all this?
Yeah.
I would never want to see the Pating rear its ugly head ever again.
That's the kind of thing though that if I was showrunning Doctor Who, I would always take it as a challenge to make the Pating good and bring it back.
Yeah.
Because you imagine it in photos. You know what? Actually, clever marketing this week.
Yeah.
The first pic you ever saw of this series was of the fucking Judoon, wasn't it? And do you remember when we saw that and it came out and we were like eye rolling, like, oh Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be so lame. And if you'd have told me at the start of the season that I'd end up loving Fugitive of the Judoon, I'd have laughed my head off. So, you know what? If I were to take over and make the Pating good, all my press pictures would be like, the Doctor's facing one of their deadliest enemies, the Pating. I know how much you love the Pating, and then drop this absolute corker of an episode. I don't know how you'd make the Pating good is the issue.
I don't know. It's much easier with the Judoon, isn't it? Because they're inherently a bit more interesting, like space police.
Low, blow. That's my Judoon impression.
Maho.
Is that David Tennant talking to them when they're in the Shadow Proclamation?
Wow, we're that lame, aren't we? I actually did that and you knew what I was referencing in Judoon.
But it's the way that you did the Maho. That's what he does.
It was a pitch perfect Tennant impression, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was.
Judoon. Yeah, you know what, just for fun, since you've said that, I'm going to say that Captain Jack is going to come back in the finale and the Master as well in prominent roles. And that old guy's going to be the Black Guardian. Why not? Let's play some bets. I'm going to do a Howard Ratner.
I really don't.
The dumbest bet I ever heard.
I
disagree, Gary. I disagree.
I don't envision a scenario where that's the Black Guardian. I think that's too much. And I think he's been smart to make the lore stuff accessible. And I think dropping the Black Guardian out of nowhere in an episode that's 50 minutes long.
Well, you say that, but like you got to remember, the last time we saw the Chameleon arc, that was well over 10 years ago. Like we know all that stuff because that's who we grew up on. If you're a kid watching this, I do wonder if you'd be confused by all of that.
I guess.
It's essentially a classic callback now, isn't it? Because if you're 10 years old watching Doctor Who, the David Tennant era is classic Who.
I just think, it's that same issue of the, and like it comes back to why Russell T Davies didn't really decided to destroy Gallifrey in the first place. It's because it's bloody complicated when you bring it back because you have all this crap. Like they've never done Rassilon. I mean, I'm more like Rassilon in all honesty as like a mythical figure, like he is in the Five Doctors, than I do as a fully fledged character. Do you know what I mean? The epic fan of Gallifrey.
I quite like him in End of Time.
He's all right, but do you know what I mean? Like once you start adding in all these Time Lords, I think it gets a bit lore heavy, and I think like the Black Guardian, the White Guardian, to just introduce them in the finale. When I mean, the best Black Guardian and White Guardian stories are the Peter Davidson. This is probably going to get a load of hate because I know people quite like the Key to Time with the Fourth Doctor. But again, both their iterations are the Black Guardian's in it for 3 episodes, 3 stories, so about 12 episodes. And he's in it for the whole series under Tom Baker. So it's like you've got enough time to kind of establish their importance. I think we've already got all this stuff like the Timeless Child, etc., thrown at you to throw in characters with such a dense kind of history and relationship with the show would be a misfire when you could save them for series 13.
Okay, but what if akin to what we were saying about Jack, this Black Guardian shows up in episode 7 and gives a cryptic tease, and we understand that it's the Black Guardian, and then we don't see him until series 13.
I'd be happy for that.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be more interesting than... Because at the moment, the fact she's like, the Master, Jack, the Cybermen, Ruth, they're all following me. I'm a bit like, oh no, is this going to be like a clip show episode?
It's going to be like Rat Race.
Yeah. No.
I honestly would be okay with all this stuff kind of feeding into a later series as long as we don't have to wait over a year to get it. If it's like, oh yeah, we'll find out all this stuff in series 13 and then they announce series 13 is not coming to like 2022 or the arse end of 2021.
I think we'll be getting series 13 in about September 2021. Because no, but this is. We
didn't have to wait that long between series 11 and 12. It was only like an extra month or two when you actually think about it.
I know, but I just think, right, you got the 60th anniversary in 2023, haven't you? Mm-hmm. It's also Doctor Who's 40th season in season 14, so that's a monumental event as well. My thinking is, are they going to wrap it all together into one big bow and try and be like, we're dropping series 14 and a special, and the 40th series of Doctor Who, we're gonna drop this all together. Do you know what I mean? Like, are they going to try and play it that way, just to kind of give us this, all singing, all dancing year in 2023, or are they going to give us, as I think you would prefer? Basically, I don't think we'll either get series 14 in the same year as the 60th, or we won't get a series 15 in the year of the 60th. I'd rather have no season the year of the anniversary, because from what we saw before, it screwed over that series, and I'd rather they just keep making them annually, and then let's cross the bridge of 2023 when we come to it. I hope they don't start scheduling, so that they can get series 14 into that year, because I don't think it means it's going to be a good series. No.
Series 7 sucked because Moffat's energy was split onto that anniversary special, Day of the Doctor.
I'm not saying what I think would be good. I'm saying what I think is the kind of thing that could kind of happen. Do you know what I mean?
I sincerely hope not.
No, I do.
I sincerely hope not. But no, I do get where you're coming from. We've not really got an annual Who for so long now, have we?
No, not at all. And I think it's been made very apparent that like they're struggling more and more and more with the ability to produce it to the standard that they want to produce it in a year. And as much as we didn't really get a delay this year, really, when you think about it.
They made it seem like it was going to be, which was really just shooting themselves in the foot, because when we found out it was delayed till 2020, we were like, oh, for God's sake, 2 years. It didn't end up being 2 years at all, did it?
It was a year and a few extra months.
It feels like it's come back a year later, even though it's been slightly longer.
Yeah, it's a few months. It's a few months. And actually, when you think about when the last episode aired, it's a year since we had Doctor Who.
Yeah.
They've got a special already lined up for this coming Christmas, though, which is good. We don't know
if it's Christmas or New Year.
Yeah, it'll be New Year, I think.
Fucking hope not.
But
bring back the Christmas special.
It's apparently it features the Daleks. I'm quite happy,
is that the Clifton Suspension Bridge stuff they were filming? Yeah.
But I'm quite happy for them to not use the Daleks in the main series and save them for specials. That doesn't impact me, really.
I don't know with the Daleks. It's a tough one, isn't it? Because I do like seeing them, but I mean, I feel like the same thing with Cybermen. Like, we see them so often now.
Yeah.
But then they say they're going to retire them. They don't really, do they? They retire them by not having them for like literally a season, and then they'll be back the year after. It's not really retiring them. Imagine if we hadn't seen the Daleks for like 5 years and they came back. That'd be incredible.
That's what's kind of cool about the Master, really, because there's so much breathing room between their appearances that it always makes you go, oh shit. I mean, obviously Missy, but the reveal of Missy, and then you can bring it back in a new incarnation, whereas the Daleks is always like, they're back, and they always have some new gimmick.
This is probably the closest between Masters changing in New Who, anyway.
Yeah.
It's only been a season out, hasn't it? It was the end of Series 10, start of Series 12.
Yeah.
But it feels like longer because we had the year gap, didn't we?
Really annoys you, doesn't it, that Smith never got a Master?
Oh, to no end. Also, now that Jack's back, it bothers me that Smith and Capaldi never got to meet Jack. Because imagine that.
Capaldi with Jack, especially, like, I'm not really like, oh, Smith, because it would have been quite a similar dynamic to Tennant, whereas Capaldi being like, shut up and stuff, I would have really killed for.
Yeah.
Smith got to meet Sarah Jane, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I haven't seen that Sarah Jane Adventure.
It's fun. He doesn't have as much chemistry with Elizabeth Sladen as David Tennant, and I think the decision to include Joe Grant in it as a returning character as well, it feels all rushed and all over the place.
Is it? I think I remember seeing the clip in that story. Doesn't he reveal that he didn't just see his Tennant companions at the end of time? He saw like every single companion ever, but we just don't see it.
Yeah,
it's kind of lame.
Yeah, it's just a bit like, ugh,
a bit fan wanky.
Yeah, but also, did he go and see Jamie McCrinnan? Do you know what I mean? Like, and things like that. Like,
I hope so. He said every companion.
You know,
you're not calling him a liar, are you?
You know, I love about his departure. You know, at the end of War Games, they're like, oh, we're going to force regenerate you, and we'll drop your companions off just where they left off, and they won't remember anything. So Jamie undergoes this entire like character development the whole way through, becomes like really, really like. Well, like he still believes in the Doctor in kind of this like, oh, he's a mystical man, but you know what I mean? He's probably like his most longest travelled companion. And they drop him off out of nowhere, and someone just shoots at him, and he's like, ah, you bloody, and he's back in the Highlander times, and it's just so weird because like that's so sad that he became this like really developed character. Yeah. Then they erase all of that, and he's just like, why I order, and like chases after them. It's such a sad ending for him.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Because the Doctor showed him this world that he never ever could have seen.
Well,
and then
he's a bit akin to Donna, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but it's almost sadder because you just see him just like snap dropped in there, and he's got no memory.
Oh, right, so he's actually like regressed, isn't he?
Yeah, he's just like everything that he develops. I mean, in the first time he takes him to space, Jamie thinks like it's the Sideman story of the Moonbase, and Jamie thinks that the Sidemen are like the Phantom Piper, like a Scottish legend. And it's only like as he travels more with the Doctor, he becomes more intelligent and like etc. So it's weird then seeing that regression in War Games.
I do like it when Doctor Who is bitterly sad, though.
Yeah, I do.
Makes it what it is. Do you think that's enough chit chat for now, Mr. Chris Fullsell?
I don't think there's ever enough chit chat between me and you. If I could record this podcast for 24 hours, then I would.
Before we go, I would like to plug our socials because we never do it.
No, I don't know why we don't.
Well, last year we had Mr. Harry Funnyman on, didn't we? And he was laughing us up a storm, so we didn't get time to. But should we do that?
Yeah, I think so.
My letterboxd is at Full Fat Videos, and Chris, yours is Chris Wizard, I believe.
It is sadly Chris Wizard. I don't really know why.
And then you can follow us on Twitter at Full Fat Videos, and then I believe Instagram is Full Fat Video.
But it's Full Fat Videos, but with underscores in between. Full_fat_videos.
Right, okay, so just to be clear, Twitter at Full Fat Videos, Instagram full_fat_videos.
Yeah.
Right, and if you'd like to see that image we spoke about last week of Chris in the Joker vest, then you'll find it on Instagram. And if you'd like to see us inflict more of our opinions on you, you can find that on Twitter. And if you'd like to see what films we've watched, you can find that on Letterboxd. And I've been Chris Fullsell, and I'll be seeing you next time, as you'll be seeing me. We'll be seeing each other.
Goodbye.